and welcome to Super Respectable. My name is David Lewis, and with me in a very nice studio is Toshio Rahman. How are you?
I'm good in my nice studio. Look at the view. It's so nice, huh?
Yes, I keep forgetting that this is a podcast, but Tosh has changed his Zoom background
Yeah.
to, I don't know what that is. Is that one of your photos?
No, I downloaded it off the internet. I looked for office
Okay.
office backgrounds for Zoom.
You had me fooled. I actually thought you were in a very fancy British Columbian location,
Like on
the
the
Eagle's
forest,
Nest.
on
Yeah.
like the 40th floor of some penthouse in the forest or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I definitely need to look into getting a better Zoom background.
Okay, for next
Um,
week, you get a cool one, and then I'll switch this one, and then we'll see who has the better one. It'll be like an
have you
ongoing.
seen? There's a I don't know. I guess it's someone on Twitter is doing Room Rater. So any kind of journalist or someone who gets interviewed on TV, they rate their background, who has the best like
Uh,
library collection, and is it too cluttered, all that sort of stuff.
I haven't seen it.
Um,
I'll take a look at that. That's funny. I saw one the other day where some guy pre-recorded, like so you can have I believe not only an image as your background, but like a video image as your background too. So some guy had recorded himself walking in on
yes, I
himself.
saw that.
But then I just
Genius.
thought, like that could just be his twin or something, right? Like if it happened in real life, if you had a twin, but something to do, right?
I saw a good one. It was a guy who tried to record his presence into various meetings for a week at work where he wouldn't be there. He would just have like a kind of a bot. It would be him. And then the
Yeah.
problem was he was so tense and nervous about it that he'd get caught out, that he was physically present and like basically a marionette and controlling what was going on. So anytime he was asked something during a Zoom meeting, he had to press like a button to make sure that the answer given by one of his prompts would not seem totally weird.
Uh,
So it's harder than you think to skip work. It's
Skip
probably
work.
more work. It's probably more work and more stress.
That's funny. So how's
Yeah.
how's your week been? Are you guys still in lockdown?
Yeah, a bit of a strange one here. There was a court case yesterday, a ruling which was brought to the court by one of these conspiracy theorists, and they challenged the curfew ruling, and they said it was against the Constitution and all that. And the judge, it was actually a very surprise decision, agreed. And so now the
Wow.
government is fighting it, and we may or may not have a curfew come the weekend. Um,
Oh, wow. That's quick. Like I guess in the legal system, that's proceeding pretty fast, right?
yeah, yeah. So
Democracy.
that's democracy. So now the police are confused and no one knows what to do because they're kind of having to enforce a curfew, whereas people think, hey, the court says this and that. So just to add to the confusion and the mess that is Corona times.
What?
But we actually had a very nice bit of winter weather for the
Okay.
last week,
Okay.
and because people were losing their minds and running out of things to do, everyone went skating.
Oh, wow. Did
Everyone
you
went
go?
outside. I did. I actually went on the ice,
Nice.
but people were falling through, and some people were deliberately falling through. Um, this is something which is really shocking for me. In Ottawa, we have, as you know, the world's longest skating rink, which is being disputed by Winnipeg of all places. So very well versed in outdoor skating, but we don't typically go onto the Rideau Canal,
Yeah.
what it's called, until 10 15 days of -20, until it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
really really secure. The Dutch here were out on the ice as soon as there was the barest appearance of ice,
And
and people
then
were just going through and getting hypothermia, and everyone else was falling through trying to help them, but they didn't care. They just kept going out. The ducks were
what?
still swimming in little open bits of water.
What is the water body that's because is it little like isolated pockets like ponds or little lakes or do you have a larger?
Well, it's because it's in the Netherlands. It's not really a natural country. It's built on a system of dikes and canals to handle the water flow. So there's water everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yeah, and so people were out in little ponds and canals wherever there was bits of frozen stuff.
And so like so you went on, you did a little bit of skating?
Yeah, on the last sensible day, so on the Saturday, it was the last day where it was like -5 after a week of minus temperatures.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty safe.
well, I don't know. I was on there for about 15 minutes, and then I looked around and saw people skating in bits. And I saw open water around me, and I thought, this
Oh
is
my
really
gosh.
stupid.
Do
I thought, what am I doing here? Yeah.
you still you still have your skating skills from your like Canadian ice hockey days? I guess that's where you learned it from, or from when you were a kid, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of sad. It's been a while. I didn't skate there. I was just, shuffling along in my shoes. I don't have skates here.
Oh yeah,
Um, but I think I still have the skills.
yeah. I
Um,
think skating is one of those things where, like, if you're a Canadian kid growing up, whether it's like rollerblading and playing hockey, or ice skating and playing hockey, or just skating anywhere, it's one of the things that I think most kids have, and I think it's got muscle memory too. I don't think you really lose it because I we took lessons, and like when I get back onto a thing, I can pick it up pretty quickly too. Like, but
I was going to ask because in Vancouver, what's it like? There's not, a typical Canadian winter there.
well, it's
So
snow.
you got to go to the indoor rinks.
Yeah, that's true. We don't snow. We don't have winter like the rest of Canada. Though we snowed over the weekend. We had some good, nice snow, and like people are making snowmans and stuff. We just my mom put us in lessons. We used to go to the skating rink when it was like 16 degrees outside, but like -5 in the rink, and
I think it's good. Yeah, for sure.
it's very good. And then we used to play hockey, so I rollerbladed a lot. So like between the two, I was pretty comfortable. But I don't think I put on a pair of rollerblades in like 20 years, and I don't think I will. I'm good on that front. But I used to skate the rink too. I used to skate the canal, and when I lived in Ottawa too, and it was really nice. It's like a really beautiful 9 kilometer or whatever stretch, and you can stop, have some hot chocolate, beaver tail, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I think the dream is, if ever I go back there to live, the to find somewhere where you could like commute to work,
On the same canal.
by skating to work. I think that's the coolest thing. Because we were lucky, we went to Carleton University, and Carleton is connected to the canal system. It's like at the very, very end of it,
Yeah, totally.
in kind of a sketchy or part of
Yeah,
the canal system. But it was cool. I remember walking with you a few times and
yeah.
skating there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good times. So
Good
Dave,
times.
it's your week. What do you got for us? You got something interesting?
Well, yes, on the topic, it got me thinking, all this sporting activity,
Oh, cool.
skating. Um, and it's an Olympic year, ostensibly. There were supposed to be the Olympics last year, right? Tokyo was Japan was supposed to host
Yeah,
Summer Olympics, and in theory, it's supposed to happen this year, and the next year, in theory, Beijing is hosting Winter Olympics.
yeah,
So yeah, all the skating got me thinking. The Dutch are really good speed skaters. They always clean up alongside the Canadians with the speed skating medals.
nice.
So that's something that was very apparent to me in the past week, that they have a very big love for skating. But
Regardless if there's ice or not, right? Like they just want to skate.
yeah, they love it. Um, but I wanted to talk about actually some of these unconventional Olympic athletes, because everyone kind of thinks about the stars, the 100-meter track athletes,
Yeah,
and for the Canadians, whoever, everything is on. Does Canada's men's team
yeah,
win uh, the ice hockey, as they say outside of North America? Um, and the women's team, obviously, they're very exciting to watch. But it's very much about going for the top things. But there's also a lot of unconventional athletes that sometimes get forgotten in this mix, and I wanted to talk about one of my favorite winter Olympians,
sure.
if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Um, I came across this guy in 2010 when Vancouver was hosting,
yeah, I remember.
and I just thought this was so strange and amazing. So the guy's name is, I'm going to struggle again with this pronunciation. His name is Prince Hubertus of Hohenlohe Langenberg,
Okay.
and this is all plagiarized from Wikipedia. But he was born in Mexico City as Hubertus Rodolph zu Hohenlohe Langenberg, and he's
Yeah.
a Mexican alpine skier, photographer, businessman, and a pop singer, also known as Andy Himalaya and Royal Disaster.
Okay.
um, And so he has participated in six.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
He has participated in 6 Olympic Games.
Wow. Summer or winter
and
or both?
Winter. Yeah. So he has competed for Mexico as very frequently as their only athlete in the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
And just as an aside, the record for most Olympics participated in is held by a Canadian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the very taxing sport of equestrian. So it's Ian Miller. He participated in 10 Olympics.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I know, but sorry, I know that there's 1 or 2 Canadian Olympians who do. You know, there's some Olympians who do 2 sports, like summer and winter.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's like you have to know how to do 2 skills at the highest level. But sorry, I digress. You continue, please.
Yeah, so back to Mr. Prince. I don't know what I'll call him. Andy. Let's call him Royal Disaster. I like that one.
Sure.
So Mr. Disaster, he was born in Mexico, but he only lived there for the first few years of his life, and he actually ended up going to school in Austria.
Oh.
And so he comes from like he's an aristocrat. That's hence the prince.
Yeah.
He came from a very old Germanic royal family, and so yeah, he ended up going to school in Austria, and that's where he learned how to ski and really brush up on the downhill side of things.
Yeah.
And he ended up founding the Mexican Ski Federation in 1981, which is a very cool thing to do.
Okay.
And I guess he saw his opportunity. He probably didn't have much of a chance to join the Austrian Ski Federation. It's a very, whereas the Dutch love speed skating, the Austrians love downhill. That's their bread and butter.
Okay.
And so he ended up competing for the Mexican Olympic team in the 1984 Sarajevo Olympics. So that was his first appearance. And he finished 26th in the slalom. So that's pretty respectable. Not super respectable, but it's respectable.
Okay.
So then he went on to participate in the 88 Calgary Olympics, 92 and 94 games. There was a bit of a hiatus. Not sure what happened in 98 and 2002. And he qualified for the 2006 Olympics, but the Olympic Committee of Mexico didn't want to send a one-man team for that year for whatever reason. It's kind of unfortunate, I think. I don't know what the problem would be in sending one guy. He probably would just pay his own way. I think he's pretty rich dude.
Well off.
Yeah. And he said he's the only reason he participates is just to keep up the dying representation of participants from countries that don't typically have, winter athletes involved.
Yeah.
So I think that's a kind of a noble thing to do.
Sure.
He then showed up again in the 2010 Winter Olympics, which is how he came onto my radar. There was a lot of reporting because of how he was a 51-year-old athlete at that time.
Yeah.
So he was the oldest athlete to participate in the games.
Oh, really? I think he was not even that old, but I guess in terms of sports age, it's...
I think the Canadian dude ended up being the oldest ever, Ian Miller. I think he was like 54 or something in his last Olympics. But at that time, he was this Royal Disaster was the oldest.
Yeah.
And so again, in Vancouver, he competed in the giant slalom and the regular slalom, and he came 78th and then 46th, respectively. So pretty good. He made it down the hill. And he last competed in the 2014 Olympics, but he didn't finish, sadly, after falling in his first run. And he attempted to qualify for the 2018 Olympics, but I guess there's certain standards that are required, and he didn't meet those.
Yeah.
But a very cool thing is, it seems like he's inspired a handful of Mexicans to also follow his lead in the winter sport domain.
Cool.
So there were four Mexicans managed to qualify for skiing, I believe it was, in the 2018 edition.
Yeah.
And Mr. Royal Disaster managed to contribute in a small way by designing the racing suits for the, for the team. So he left his mark there.
Yeah.
And now he lives in Liechtenstein, where he is also a citizen, of course.
Wow. That's very cool. So he's pretty much like a representation of the world, right?
I think it's a very cool thing. I mean, there are some criticism of people who participate in this respect. Like some challenged him and said, you're just using your token Mexican citizenship to gain access through the back door to the Olympics. And is that fair to the Olympics should be mainly about the best of the best.
Yeah.
And he says his argument is no, it's more about representation and having a more colorful and international involvement, which I think is a kind of good idea.
Do you know what the rule is if you have dual citizenship? Can you choose which country you represent in the Olympics, or you have to go for your like primary
No,
citizenship?
I believe you can take advantage of the passports that you have.
Yeah.
And this brings me to the next one. So there's other unconventional Olympians.
Yeah, sure.
And where I think this first got a lot of attention for these kind of quirky people was slightly before our time. It's Eddie the Eagle. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, there's a movie about him too.
Yeah. So this was in the Calgary Olympics, and he's a British ski jumper.
Yeah, which is like
and
the craziest sport of all time. Like, why would you do that?
I think that's insane.
Insane. Yeah.
That's like that one, and I forgot the name. What's the one where you same thing? You fling yourself off and you do a bunch of flips in the air. I think that's also crazy.
Yeah. They're both anywhere where you're in the air and you have no control and you don't know how you're going to land is just dangerous and insane. Like it's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute and just hoping you land.
I just don't understand like the practical utility of it. I mean, I can understand like the person who runs the fastest, the person who goes down the hill the fastest, but the person who flings themselves off the side of the mountain for the longest distance is quite something.
How do you? I know we talked about, but how do you think they even invented that? Like, how do you think some dude was like, hey, you know what we should do? We should ski down a mountain and jump off of it and see if we can land again without any support or safety. It seems so dangerous. Like even when I watch it, it's just unbelievable. And they're so high, and they're like they're so high and they're so far. Like any mistake, you're just gone, right?
But the thing is, that one, it seems like I don't recall seeing any horrific accidents with that one. They all seem to kind of land somewhat gracefully, which I find incredible, because that's the kind of thing is like, how do you practice for it? The other one where they're doing their spins in the air, I've seen them, they actually go in swimming pools. And then eventually when they realize where the ground is, they say, okay, try it on solid earth.
There's a buildup, right?
There's a buildup, but with this one, I mean, you can't exactly, I don't know, maybe you can just fling yourself into a lake.
Which is just scary.
Apparently, just a little backstory to Mr. Eddie the Eagle. At the time he qualified for the Calgary Olympics, he was living in a Finnish mental institution because he couldn't afford to live anywhere else, and he got himself committed there. So that's kind of a weird thing. So anyways, after his involvement in the Calgary Olympics, the IOC, the Olympic Committee, put in what's called the Eddie the Eagle rule, to tighten up qualifications into subsequent Olympics. So basically, they have to have prior competition, a track record in international events, and then finish in the top 50 or top 30%, whichever is more competitive.
Yeah.
But even then, people fall through the cracks or make it through, like our fearless prince from Mexico. They do find ways through. So hats off to Eddie the Eagle. I think it's a great thing to do. There's obviously other ones like the Jamaican bobsled team, right?
Yeah, that's also another movie.
Because the thing is, like, bobsled is also a bit loopy. You're flinging yourself into this thing. And it's super dangerous, especially in the Vancouver Olympics. I don't know if you remember.
Someone died.
The track was someone died, and the track design was really dangerous. There was a lot of people, and the skeleton was where a person sadly died, but also the bobsled, people were crashing all the time. So I guess there's these niche sports where, the Jamaican bobsled team, they were like, okay, well, let's field the team and see how we do. There's probably a pretty good chance you could make it.
Well, like,
but yeah.
I wonder if how applications work for countries' involvement. So there's like 201 countries and territories around the world or something. Like, can you just apply and get in for any of the Olympics and then send someone, or do you need to like certain country? Like, I don't understand how the whole system, because I understand certain countries are winter countries, Winter Olympic countries. Certain countries are Summer Olympics, and
Hmm.
some are both. But some are clearly not the other ones, right? Like they have no. So like, how does it work? I don't know. If anyone knows, let us know. Maybe we'll look into it as well. But I don't know if you have a background on this as well. Qualifications of
I think
countries.
they might have some. I think there is actually some somewhat relaxation in some entry requirements for qualification, because this brings me to another character
Oh,
who
okay.
you may have heard of, Eric the Eric the Eel. Sorry.
The eel. No, I've never heard of that, but I'm gonna Google while you speak.
Um, so I would encourage our listeners to look up his fascinating and incredible swimming feat. His real name is Eric Musambani,
Yeah, Malanga,
and he was competing for Equatorial Guinea
Equatorial
um,
Guinea.
in
Well,
the, I think it was the London Olympics. And prior to his involvement or his participation, he apparently had never seen an Olympic-sized swimming pool before. So that really kind of
oh,
raises alarm bells. I don't know how he got into the Olympics there, but I think it's through this kind of um, more like democratizing the participation for countries that are underrepresented.
yeah,
Um, so it's really amazing to watch. I think it's inspiring in some way. He swam in the 100-meter freestyle,
yeah.
um, and the thing was, he qualified for his next round due to the fact that everybody else in his heat was disqualified. You know, the false starts and whatever other
Yeah,
reasons people disqualified, drug use or something.
yeah.
Um, and he had by far the slowest time in Olympic history for the 100-meter
Uh,
freestyle, but he managed to even had trouble finishing the race.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was like, he started off strong, and
It
he
just,
started like running out of breath.
yeah.
And if you find, I think there's Australian play-by-play, really incredible. Just the announcer is really really great. Um, and his time, although he won his heat, it was too slow to advance to the next round. I don't know how that
Yeah,
works, but it was a personal best, an Equatorial
Toyo.
Guinean national record, and then he went on to become the national coach for the Equatorial Guinean swimming team.
So I actually, so so my parents are from Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is never in the Olympics. So one day
There you go.
I Googled how come Bangladesh is not in the Olympics, and apparently in one of the Olympics, so how the Olympics work is sometimes they give like after everyone's qualified and all the countries are there, sometimes they have like a few little opening slots that they give randomly to different countries.
Okay.
So one year, I think some like other sports tournaments do that as well. So one year they gave like 3 spots to Bangladesh, and they sent one of their swimmers and like an archer or something like that. And like they didn't like win anything, but like they found there was like a way for them to get involved as well. So like, yeah, it's interesting. Like I guess as Canadians, we have like people in all our sports, but in other places around the world, I think like Equatorial Guinea, for example, they might not have swimming, but they might be good in football, right, or soccer, as the world calls it. So like, so I think there's different venues and different options. So yeah. But okay, I have a question for you. If you could be in the Olympics, would it be summer or winter? And if so, which sport?
uh, I'm a Winter Olympics guy, and obviously I would aim to be in
Hockey.
the hockey men's hockey team, but
Oh,
that's not going to happen. I think I would, just to give another one. I think, what's another good Winter Olympic sport? I do like the skiing ones. Those are good. I think I'd
you
like to compete in one of the skiing, like the moguls. I think that's
mogul.
great.
Oh my God, mogul. So you're pretty comfortable on the mountain? Like you've been skiing your whole life?
Um, yeah, it's a hard one to answer. I mean, I thought I was a good skier until I started skiing down proper mountains,
Yeah,
and then I realized I'm actually not that good.
yeah,
I can get down the mountain. I can do most of the challenging runs, but some people are really on a different level. So,
yeah.
what about you?
About skiing or about the Olympics? Or both?
First the skiing,
Okay.
and then the other one.
I can ski. I haven't in a long time. I learned when I was in my teens, and I like it more than snowboarding. I hate snowboarding. I really just find snowboarding really not really in fun at all. But skiing, I definitely enjoy. I'm not like the best skier, so I do greens and like blues. I don't do like moguls or blacks or double diamonds or this and that. But but it's enjoyable. Like I like it. It's fun. Like it's a day on the mountain, and if you know what you're doing, you can have a lot of fun and etc. etc. As for the Olympics, I would probably do a team sport because I get super nervous if it's just me myself. Because I used to swim when I was in like high school, and like I used to do like some like team swimming, but like for the school, like but mostly like singles. And like you get like super nervous and like it's really like not the greatest of feelings, you know. And I always got like, but when I did stuff in teams, it was a little bit better. So I would probably do Summer Olympic swimming, like some type of swimming. That's where I feel I'm the strongest. I still have a pretty good uh, like like background in swimming. Like I still swim and etc. etc. But I wouldn't like. I'm not one of these people that like I can't make my life about training and like be like Mr. Prince. What's the name? Mr. the first guy, Eddie, or the Prince.
Andy Himalaya, Hubertus,
Yeah.
Hohen, Low, Langenberg.
Yeah. I think it's amazing that people who dedicate their life to sport. It's really commendable. It's hard, like eating, sleeping, training. I remember watching this thing on Michael Phelps, and like I think he has the record for the most Olympic gold medals or of all time or something. And there was a point where, and by the way, he's like younger than us, but like there was a point where he said that he hadn't missed a day of training in like 7 years or 5 years, even on his birthday and Christmas or whatever. And this guy's like life was this, and then at the end he retired, right? Like so I kind of feel like there's more to life than just sports, but I enjoy it. I think it's beneficial, it's useful. It's how many things are there in the world that bring people together other than like the Olympics and like the UN, I guess. Like I
So, what do
don't
you
know.
think? What do you think about the Olympics? Are you a fan? Like when it comes on every 4 years or
Okay.
whatever it is, are
So
you like obsessed with it?
no. So because I have a life. So like it's like people's
Ah,
like, do you like video games and stuff? I'm like, no. I got a life. I have a contrarian view though. Even though I think it's great, I think that we give too much attention and too much money and resources to the Olympics. Do you remember last week you were telling me that like, oh, when I first met you, you asked me the question, would you rather take a pill or a meal? Like it's
yeah,
I was actually laughing with my wife about it yesterday. I was like, "Oh, you know what Dave told me?" And she started laughing, and I said, "Yeah." So I get. She's like, "Oh, so you've been doing this for like 20 years now."
yeah.
So one of the other things I've been doing for 20 years is that I've always felt like the Olympics are sort of like a waste of money in that sense that like the process to bid for an Olympics games, get them, prep for them, have them, and then over is like it's like 10, 15 years. Like I remember in 2000, so I'm from Vancouver. The Vancouver, we got the Olympics. We bid for it. We got them. I think 10 years before the Olympics, and then I remember for 10 years the city was just building like train stations and digging up roads and building like big badminton courts and like this and that, like everything around the city. And as great as it was, after 2000 August or September of 2010, they've just been like sitting there empty. We have this huge arena where like no one plays badminton, or there's like these speed
Oh
skating
no.
rinks were just set empty. And it's happened in Beijing, it's happened in Sydney, etc., etc. So my theory was that like instead of building infrastructure around the world and bidding, can we all as a world agree on two locations, like one city for winter
Yeah,
and one
give it to
summer?
Greece for the summer. That's where it
Totally.
started.
And every 4 years, another country would take responsibility and pay and like get it operated, but the location, at least the infrastructure would be the same. You know what I'm saying? And I know we're taking away like the nationality spirit and this and that, but we'd be saving so much money, and which I think is more needed in environmental concerns and poverty related areas and stuff like that. So that was my concern. Plus, the IOC is like insanely corrupt. Like if you really look into them and you watch, there's a lot of corruption that happens at like the highest of levels. But I don't know. Like it's fun, it's enjoyable, but I don't like usually the only thing I'll really watch is I watch a couple of like swim meets if it's on TV, and then maybe the gold medal game for the hockey, like as a Canadian. But like I don't plan my life around the Olympics. Like I didn't even know the Olympics was happening this year. I thought it was just canceled. Like
Well, I think it's kind of as you said, so much money has been spent already by Tokyo on preparing, but they're really panicking because of COVID.
COVID.
It was already delayed. They said it's going to happen this year, no matter what. And you
Summer,
know,
right?
summer.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. They might have to do a modified Olympics where no spectators and I don't know, no water polo where everyone's in this pool together.
Yeah. What like do you get pretty excited when the Olympics come on? Are you a watcher or
Yeah, I'm the opposite of you. I pause my life and dedicate my existence around the
to the
Olympic
gold medal
schedule.
count? Yeah.
No, I watch as much as I can. Like I said, mostly Winter Olympics. The Summer Olympics, for me, it's mostly like 100 meters. Like the track and field stuff is cool.
Yeah.
The other stuff I'm not too bothered about. But I love. Oh, the other one I really like is in the winter is the biathlon and those ones where they're shooting the
Shooting.
targets. I love that stuff. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would watch the Winter Olympics all day long if I could.
We have this.
Um,
I don't know if in the Netherlands they do this, but like here in Canada, like the CBC pretty much it's 24 hours like Olympic coverage for 2 weeks, right? It's just like
yeah,
anytime we turn it on, it's just Olympic. But one of those things, one of the things I get kind of like bored is like I know it's exciting the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, but like those first couple days are like kind of boring when like nothing happens, and then like it's like the last 3-4 days where things get exciting, where it's like America's in the lead, and then like the silver count and the bronze count and the finals and stuff. So I guess it's sort of like most playoffs for any sports. I kind of get more excited as we get near the end, but the beginning point is a little slow. But
it's about the story. I want to see it build. I want to see the whole storyline develop
how
and
how
come
how
to a nice
how are
crescendo.
how are the Dutch with medal counts? Are they pretty good, or they do pretty well, or they're okay for their
Mm,
country, or not that great?
well, like I said, in the Winter Olympics, they actually, I think they come top five most years,
Oh, nice.
top 10, but just because of their strength in speed skating.
Oh,
So there's lots of medals to be had in speed skating. It's kind of like swimming in the Summer Olympics. There's a lot of medals to be had if you're a good swimming country.
oh.
So they really do well on that front.
So you can
And
pretty much just like put all your eggs in a basket if that's your strength.
yeah, it's interesting how countries specialize because Dutch people are big people. They're tall, the tallest in the world, I think.
Wow.
Um, and you think, well, put them in hockey gear and make them play in the NHL, but that's just not what they do. They just want to do speed skating, and that's it.
Do you,
So
do you know like at the end of the games is a country like awarded like the winner of the Olympics, or we don't do that? Like how does it work? It's just the one who has
yeah,
the it is
uh, well, I don't know if there's like uh,
an
an
official.
overall ceremony, but there's like the final medal tally,
Oh
which
yeah.
is a big thing of national pride, and it's whoever gets the most gold medals. I think it's weighted towards who gets the most gold, and then most medals overall. Blah blah blah.
Isn't it mostly just China and America at this point for most of the Olympics, or like
And the
and the
Russians,
Russians?
they'll try and do a bit of things to boost their chances.
Yeah.
Um, but I always think it's sad that people who come fourth, it's like totally forgotten about.
Yeah.
They don't get a medal, but they're fourth best in the world,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, oh no, sorry man, or sorry lady, you came
Well,
fourth, you're irrelevant.
even if you're 100th in the world or thousandth in the world, that's still pretty good. There's like 7 billion people in this world,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
But
don't
the
know.
thing is, like all the money is these people, they dedicate their lives to it, and
Yeah.
all the glory and the sponsorship money and attention and the media stuff, it all goes to the first, second, and third place
Yeah.
people. So it's tough.
It's yeah, it's a weird thing. It's really strange because like I remember growing up here with the Olympics, I didn't go to any of the sports, but I went to the Olympic Village, which by the way is like it's empty now and they have like trouble selling it, these apartments. And I went to like all the fun things. And there's a lot of excitement when it happens, but I think the exit afterwards is not the greatest. I think the build up is really well done, but then exits kind of just leave things high and dry at the end. So like yeah, I'm not sure. Like, for example, you were talking about that guy who passed away on the skeleton. Like, I don't even know if that skeleton is still exists or like that track or they just like took it apart or whatnot. But there's a lot of stuff around the city from like 10 years ago or 11 years ago. And
Do you remember the opening ceremony there
yeah.
for Vancouver?
Wayne
There was a few
Gretzky.
things that
Yeah.
there was a few things that went wrong from what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Like one of
Pillar like
the
a
torches didn't lift up,
yeah.
and then they had Wayne Gretzky. The part that I thought was insane was they put Wayne Gretzky, our national icon, in the back of a pickup truck, and then they just like drove him around Vancouver in the pouring rain to light up the
I
torch.
First of all, where is Wayne Gretzky? I haven't heard from him in a long, long time. Is he just hanging out or like retired? Does he
Yeah,
play?
yeah, he's enjoying life. I think
I
he's
I went to this is my funniest Wayne Gretzky story. I was in Los Angeles with my sisters, and I went to Los Angeles. I forgot the team, not the Dodgers, the other baseball team, the N. Or whatever. I'm not a baseball person. It's one of the teams in California. I went to a game because it was super, super, super cheap. Like I think it was like $20 a ticket or something like that. And I'd never been to a baseball game, so I was like, why not, right? So we go to the game, and I don't know if you've ever been to a baseball game, but it's the most boring sport of all time. It's like 9 innings of nothing, you know.
yeah, not my thing.
So I'm sitting there, I'm eating my popcorn, drinking my Coke, and then like on the jumbotron, it's like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wayne Gretzky, and he's like sitting there and he's like waving to people, and people are like applauding. They're so happy to see him and stuff. And I was like, this is America. Like I know he played for the Kings, right, at the end of his
Yeah.
career and stuff. But I was like, this is so weird. He's like this famous Canadian icon, and all these Americans are like cheering for him. Then in Los
For me,
Angeles.
that just highlights how boring baseball is. They have to like point people away from the game and say, "Look in the stands at this person," and
Who?
clap a little bit.
But alternatively, what do you think is the most exciting sport to watch in person?
Oh, I've fully converted to European sports. I'm into soccer, football.
It's
So I've had the privilege of going to a bunch of games here. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's I like I've never been to like a real football game. I'd imagine like the actual sport itself and the goal count it's kind of low after 90 minutes, but I guess the atmosphere kind of makes up for it, the rowdiness and the people and
Well, yeah, what I like, sorry to interrupt, is um, it's going to make me sound really snobby, but they've kind of eliminated the North American aspects of it
yeah,
because it's and they've kept it out of the game. It's just 45 minutes
yeah,
of one half, no commercial breaks.
yeah,
There's a pause, and then the next 45 minutes,
45.
and the game's over.
Yeah.
And then that's the game. What drives me crazy, I love watching hockey and going to hockey games, but it would drive me insane that we would pay money to go to a game, and then they would have, you could see they would go for like TV break, commercial break, and the players are
Yeah,
just hanging around just so that they could show car commercials and beer commercials.
it's horrible.
Uh, I was like, this is destroying my experience. So
And
I
then
like that.
I used to go to hockey games when I was a kid, and they really make it so like a what is it? It's three-quarters of 20 minutes each, but then breaks. Like so the whole thing technically with all the things takes what 2-3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours to get done, right, per game, like with all
Yeah,
your and then like a lot of it, but if you actually do the actual math on how much time is in the game, it's probably only like a third of that, right? Most of it is like the commercial breaks you said, or like some guy coming out like with like a t-shirt cannon and then like the mascot falling from the sky. It's like a real like entertainment thing. And it's like I kind of feel like I get to the point, let's do the actual sports. I don't need the excess fat, I need the meat, like I need that. So
yeah.
yeah, you
That's why
pay
I
for
prefer
it.
like even I cannot stand American football. I find it like twice as slow as hockey in that respect. And then if you watch rugby, it's 40 minutes a break, 40 minutes, and again like with soccer, no pause, no commercial breaks,
Yeah.
and it just goes. And so there's none of this like cheerleaders and shooting hot dogs at people in t-shirts. It's all about the sport, which is what I like.
Yeah.
So
I think this is the American, like the westernization and North Americanization of crap, like always making everything into entertainment, and it's like a money machine, right? So like it gets boring and slow. My question is, would you know how when you go for the Olympics, you can buy tickets to go see certain sports? Like, are you interested in that, or are you just like, no, I'll watch it from home? Like, would you spend that much money, or it's expensive sometimes?
yeah, I was lucky in some respects. When I was living in the UK, I went to London to attend some events.
Yeah.
So it was really competitive because there was like Olympic fever in the UK at that time.
Oh, excuse me.
And yeah, I managed to get tickets to watch a soccer game.
Nice.
And then I watched some of I think it was marathon because you could just walk around London and watch the people run around. But obviously, like for things like the 100 meters, the whole world wants a ticket. So that's hard to get access to.
Yeah.
But I think for like in general, it's something that's kind of a cool thing to experience. Um,
Sure.
I qualified as a volunteer, but I couldn't get the time off work, unfortunately.
Oh, I thought you qualified as
Yeah.
an athlete. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
No, no, not the same. Yeah.
If you could go back in time, would you give more energy and efforts to sports, or were you pretty happy with your choices in life? Would you have wanted to be an Olympian?
Yeah, I dedicated a fair amount of time to playing hockey when I was younger. I never made it to any kind of competitive level, but I really enjoyed it. I love hockey
Yeah,
and soccer. I was also in soccer leagues throughout. I never made it higher than the high school team.
yeah, same.
Yeah, but I tip my hat to anybody who qualifies and dedicates their life to it. There was a guy in my high school who qualified for the Olympics for the Canadian canoe team, kayak team.
Yeah,
And he would go down every winter to Florida because he needed it to train year round.
yeah,
And his diet was really intense and everything. His whole life was revolved around it. So it gives people a certain focus and dedication and structure,
yeah,
especially in your teenage years when you want to go wild a bit.
yeah.
So I think it's a good thing, but it's hard. Like it's kind of about parenting too. Some parents were really like saying, oh, they want to live vicariously through their kids because they didn't
Yeah.
make it to the NHL, so they would, you know, force their kids to wake up at 4 in the morning and go to hockey practice when they didn't really want to. But
Crazy. It's crazy. We had to do like so I would never push my kids if they don't want to do anything. I don't need an Olympian in the family or not, but if they enjoyed it, I would support it. But like I remember I had to wake up super early for swim practice. I had to drop my sister off in swim practice. I always used to think like, why can't we just like why do we have to do this in the morning? Like, can't we do this after school? Like it's the same practice, but why do we have to do it in the morning? Because I like sleeping. But but yeah, like I think one of the problems with being an athlete is that like your whole life revolves around it. So if anything happens, an injury or a problem, like it's kind of like the whole Jenga tower collapses, which you hear from pro athletes all the time. Footballer gets injured, they can't do it anymore. Baseballer hurts his arm. Hockey player, breaks something. So it's like you're betting a lot on something that on your body pretty much and your mind, I guess. So it's always good to have, I think, a backup or an overall point of view as opposed to just a single approach, because it's such a risky thing to do, and it's proven time and time again. And most athletes have a lifespan, right? I know Ian Miller. I just googled him while you were talking. He's like 75 years old, or he's like, but that's the exception, right? Most athletes will get to a certain age and then you just can't do it anymore because someone better or younger or will take over, and then your body just naturally starts to get slower, right? And so like it's a hard thing, I guess. And then like, what do you do after, right?
I would imagine like these ski jumpers, especially, like they start putting on a bit of weight once their
Yeah.
metabolism slows. They don't go too far then.
Yeah,
And I'm like, uh, even if you're a gold medalist ski jumper, is there really much money in that? I guess you're probably already kind of well off if
sponsors
you're able to compete in that kind of sport.
well, I think
Um,
the guys who do it the best, like for example, if you take the Canadian men's hockey team, they're all NHLers, right? So their real job is to play in the NHL, which is I know is
except last time, I think last time they went, the NHL didn't contribute their player, so
oh
it was a
really?
very interesting mix of people. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so where would some of these players, the other guys, come from?
So they really like, all of Canada's best players are in the NHL, whereas
Of
like
course.
Russia was slightly more advantaged in that Olympics because hey, wasn't the last Winter Olympics in Russia? It's kind of a convenient decision.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
the Russian league is probably second best in the world, and
Yeah.
so there was a slightly higher caliber non NHL players there that were Russian. So I think they ended up winning. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, so they would just draw them on from all the non-professional leagues or random European leagues.
Uh,
So it was a very interesting mix of people that made up the Canadian team last time.
yeah. It's interesting. I look forward to seeing what happens 2021, like this year with the Olympics. More from a logistical point of view, will it be like an empty stadium, like you
Yeah,
say?
yeah,
Will
yeah.
will it be about even athletes? How are you going to like? I guess you're going to have a very like controlled environment, I guess for COVID. They did that with the NBA with the bubble in Disney World, and where they just brought players and they just like tested them all the time and this and that. And apparently it worked. Like no one got sick from what I knew. And then they had, but it was weird because they played and there was like there was like screens of people but not real people like TV screens of like audience members.
Yeah, I find it
So
strange. I don't know if you've watched much sports lately, but I watch a lot of soccer and hockey. Well, not so much hockey these days, but um, there's just fake fan noises, and it's so surreal because they're playing in empty rinks and
Yeah.
stadiums, and there's someone who's like definitely controlling because they're it's like a video game. Anytime there was a goal scored, the guy presses a button to have someone cheering, or if there's a fight or a foul, there's someone booing, and it's just a weird thing to be watching these days. I guess it's better than total silence in the background because you kind of realize how much the fan experience makes up the atmosphere when you watch a
Yeah.
game.
I read that like I think the NHL has started, right? Like it's functioning, I
Yeah, it's
assume.
on.
But people are getting COVID, right? Like people are getting sick or something. One of the teams like Edmonton or Calgary or something, like half the team got COVID or something like that, no?
Yeah, same thing with soccer in a few teams. I'm sure players are sneaking out and probably relaxing the rules a bit as they travel. So
Yeah, but so I used to
yeah.
be like as a good Canadian boy, I used to be like a big hockey fan, and then like my team never won, and I got sad, and so I started kind of decreasing. And then there was a while where I just didn't follow the NHL at all, and now I'm back. There's all these teams that I've never even heard of before. There's like a Las Vegas team, Seattle has like a team coming next year, it's the Kraken, and all this stuff. So it's like it's changed a lot. Like all my favorite players, like Pavel Bure, Trevor Linden, Matthias
Yeah.
Ohlund, Mark
I don't
Messier.
think I could name a single player on the Ottawa Senators, which is
Oh
very
yeah,
sad.
and to make you feel worse, they're probably 10 to 15 years younger than you right now, and they're on the
Oh,
Senators.
it's
The
really
kids, yeah.
hard to wrap your head around because last night I was watching. It was Champions League and it was Barcelona against Paris Saint Germain,
Yeah.
and the top player for Paris Saint Germain is Mbappe, Kylian Mbappe,
Yeah,
and he is 21, 22 years old. And
yeah.
I looked up his Wikipedia. It said his favorite player is Cristiano Ronaldo. Well,
Yeah,
like growing up,
yeah.
so
Well,
he
I
was,
wonder.
yeah,
It's
and
I feel.
he's still playing, but
Yeah.
it's just really he's our age now, Ronaldo.
These kids, yeah, I don't know, man.
Kids
It's
these
it's
days,
it's crazy times. Thanks so much. It's a nice change of pace from usually like the corruption and the murderers and all the other
murders,
stuff.
yeah, something a
But
bit lighter these days.
yeah, so as of right now, the Olympic is scheduled to go on in the summertime in Tokyo, or is it?
I believe so. I haven't checked, but there's a bit of scandal going on because the head of the Tokyo Olympics has said a lot of sexist things, and
Oh,
he had to step down. So a lot of drama. I think they spent a lot of money. They wanted the Olympics to go ahead, but
yeah.
who knows?
Yeah. I mean, even like I think not even the Olympics, but when you get FIFA World Championships or other international sporting events, a lot of money and resources going into building things, hiring people, doing this and that. There's a lot of logistical work, and I don't know. I know there's like when's the next FIFA games, the World Games, World Cup
The next World Cup.
next year?
I think it's one in Qatar, isn't it? That's 22,
22. Yeah, I know there's
I
been a lot of
think.
controversy around that, right? Like bringing in
Mm.
laborers to build, and like how do you play soft football in a country where it's like 35 degrees all the time?
Do you know
For
they're planning to after that World Cup takes place because Qatar is such a small country.
yeah.
Apparently, they're planning to like keep one or two of the stadiums and then dismantle the rest and then rebuild them in Africa.
Really?
Yeah,
Like ship like once they dismantle it, ship the stadiums to another place in Africa?
yeah. I don't know if that's still the plan, but that was what I read a few years ago. It said because they're like Qatar is what 2 million, 3 million people max, and
Yeah.
half of that is expats.
Yeah.
Um, so they don't need eight national stadiums,
Yeah,
right, for holding 80,000 people.
it's too
So
many, right?
they said, okay, well, we're a rich country, we're gonna like dismantle them and then give them to like various African countries. So
Wow.
probably saddle them with another white elephant, which will rust and fall
Well,
apart.
I just to touch on it, one of the things I find really interesting is when in a country when the Olympics happens, they kind of spread it out across a country or a region, right? The stadiums and this and that. So I like people will like athletes will be traveling like around the country, relative like in Japan, for example, not everything will be in Tokyo. I'm assuming pretty much
Hmm.
nothing will be in Tokyo because it's so crowded. It'll probably be outside in the rural areas, but they all can't be in a certain place. They probably be spread out. So like you might be having to travel, like, everyone might be doing the opening ceremonies in X, but then they'll have to go to the north, the east, the south. It's a real logistical nightmare, I think. Things really need to operate very well. In Vancouver, it was split between two places primarily. It was Vancouver proper and Whistler, which is our winter skiing section, right? So people were going back and forth, etc., etc. So like I understand the economic value and what it brings, but it really needs to go really well. I remember people here where like hotel rooms were getting booked up weeks, months, years in advance. Business was good, but then like 2 weeks later, people were just like, bye, like like see you later. But it was cool. I remember seeing people like athletes are walking through the city, because athletes would be in their national gear, so you'd be like, oh, that guy's like Dutch, or oh, that guy's German and stuff. So it was kind of cool in that sense. But like, yeah, I mean, for the average person, I think it was sort of like, leave me alone and let me get to work. Like I don't care.
Yeah, I think like when I was in London for the 2012 Olympics,
Yeah.
there was a lot of hype leading into it, and everyone said London's going to be overwhelmed. They won't be able to handle it.
You guys had stadiums all over the country, didn't you?
What actually, for the most part, things were in London, but I think there was a few events
like
up north, because they try and spread it a little bit. But the thing is, I never saw London so quiet. It was when they held the Olympics, because so many Londoners said, I don't want to be here when it's this busy. It's the summertime. They probably just rented out their house and left, went to Spain or something.
What do you yeah. Here's a well, we can have a little fun with this. If you were the IOC president, right, and like you're sitting there and you're thinking, what would be the worst place in the world logistically to hold the Olympics, because of like city constraints and location, people, blah 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 blah. Because for me, even Beijing and Shanghai seem crazy, but there's a lot of land in China, right? But like, what would be the worst place, taking all considerations into place, for holding the Olympics? And remember, you're isolating an entire country on our podcast.
Lagos.
Oh,
Nigeria.
Well, just
there's a few reasons. I think traffic is bad. Infrastructure is in trouble. Electricity is irregular. There's 20 million people plus, I don't know, who live there, and where would you find the space? They'd probably have to be human rights abuses to clear them out and make space to build stadiums.
Could they even have the money to do it if they wanted to? No, right? Like Lagos does.
I think as Nigeria is a rich country, just resources are not directed in the right way. So they probably could come up with the money if push came to shove. But yeah, that's probably one of the places. And then obviously, war zones and funky places. But I think outside of the war zone, somewhere like Kinshasa or Lagos would be high on the list.
Yeah, it's.
How about you?
I'm smart. I'm not going to answer. I don't want to isolate anybody.
Oh, really? Screw me.
No. I agree. I think probably I was going to say areas that are probably just like where the money could be used for better things. So yeah, I don't have like a specific country in mind, but some of those South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries where it's like hot and like high traffic density, lots of people, small area, would not be great for full Olympic Games. Because like, for example, like Dhaka or Bangladesh, and they have an Olympics, they have a cricket stadium and cricket, like and it's just one sport, so it's not that bad. But when you're talking about multiple sports with like hundreds of thousands of people and stuff, and then like taking into consideration visitors, where people are going to stay, food, sanitation, this and that. And I think Southeast Asia really isn't the greatest place for that kind of stuff. Bangkok, Laos, Vietnam, like there's so many people. Like, what are you gonna do with all these people, right? And so,
what are you gonna do with them all?
Yeah, sad. Anyways,
there we go.
I will. I'll end it there. Thanks so much. That was interesting. That was a very cheerful event, and I might go watch Eddie the Eagle again. That was a good movie and cool running.
Yes.
That was a really good
and super respectable listeners, please check out Eric the Eel. We'll share the link to his.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch famous.
I'm gonna watch it. I feel bad though. Sometimes I'm like, these guys are trying, but 1 minute and 58 seconds for 100 meters is pretty bad. Like, so like, I think the world record is like 40 seconds or something, right? Or 30 to 40 seconds per 100 meters. But Yeah, at least he tried, right? And he's got
He
a club.
tried. You got to try.
You gotta try. Anyways, Dave, have a good day, and I hope whatever ends up happening with your courts, people stop falling through ice, and people are able to go outside. Like it seems like the Dutch just don't want to follow the rules, right? We don't want to isolate. We don't want to quarantine. We don't want to. Yeah, you want to. We'll step on the ice when we're ready to step on the ice, not when you tell us.
It's a very liberal country. People are very liberal here. I've realized.
Right.
I think, yeah, it's a very unique country. Very well run in some respects, but in other respects, not so super respectable.
There you go. I understand.
There we go.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Josh.
Take care.
You too.